呈现，拥抱着冬夜里那个日光在呈现。
Welcome to a LaSalle Battle Report. This is one of our favourite games. It's one of the Sam Mustafa classics. It's a low-level Napoleonic game where the armies are not huge, and this has been made interesting with the scenarios, which is really the secret to good games of LaSalle in particular. This is something Rogers found on the forum, and I'll post the details below so you can have a look at yourself, all the details. And it's makes a very interesting game and quite an exciting finish. Yep, so we get the new battle boards in action for the first time. I'll be doing a video on that very soon. Very easy to make, very cheap. You can have a go yourself, and they're great, light hard wearing, all that kind of stuff. But enough of the sales pitch. The scenario, as you mentioned, is 5 objectives. As you can see, there are 2 hills. Number 1 on the far left is a bridge over that river, which I think is impassable, so it marks the edge of the table. And the way the game works, you play out the standard LaSalle game, which is 16 guaranteed turns, 8 turns each. And then you roll to see if there's any additional turns or when the game suddenly ends. And what you then do in this scenario is compare the number of objectives held by each player. Now, to hold 3 or 4, the towns or small villages, if you've got a unit occupying, that's considered yours and you get a point. As for the hills and the bridge, you have to be within 4 inches and have no enemy within 4 inches, which does make it considerably more difficult. So let's look at the forces quickly. My opponent there, this is set in 1813. He's got the Danish force. And as you can see, the 3 commands, A, B and C, they're all roughly equal. The complication in his army is that his 2 cavalry form a sort of division under the command of the general, which is very restrictive because you can't split those 2 cavalry because you really need a commander to operate them. And it also sort of ties the general to the cavalry a bit. So that balances out a bit because it does have slightly superior forces. As you see on mine at the bottom, I got 3 roughly equal divisions. The big differences being where the artillery is, and I've got a cavalry unit attached to command D and a cavalry unit attached to command F. So I can threaten both flanks, which is a definite tactical advantage. As you can see, let's put all the armies back on. If you look at the bats, they represent the artillery batteries. My opponent there has 2 heavy batteries. They're the 4-gun ones. And I've got the 3-gun ones, but the one on the bottom right is horse artillery. I made a bit of a mistake here because I've deployed those. The deployment is more or less set by the scenario. You've got to put them D, E, F as it were, A, B, C. But you can fiddle about within that. And I placed the horse artillery to kind of run a field of fire alongside the hill, try and cut off him supporting the main towns. It was a bit of a mistake. I kept those limb because they've got nothing to shoot at first turn anyway, and got into a much more aggressive position because they are horse artillery. The range is a bit of a limiting factor on them. Now look at the overall situation. I mean, I'm thinking the villages in the centre have got to be the key to this. And if I can force him out of the other village, I've got to at least hold 1. I've got to take 4. If I could force him out of 3 as well, that's 2. And that's difficult to lose from, really, because if you can just contest the other objectives, or at least 2 of them, that's a sort of modest win. So really the horse artillery, I think, could be more aggressive to stop him. So I put them up behind the hill, number 5, to have a sort of raking fire across behind 3 and 4. And maybe that would draw his cavalry out and we had a different game with more of a battle on the right. So I'm going to do, I've stacked my Division F with as much as possible to the left. And they're going to join in the central assault on the villages. On the left-hand side, I've got Command D, who have got the hill there, which they can contest or occupy. And with his cavalry not on the scene and me having a unit of cavalry, I can make a dash for that bridge at some point and take that. Battery 1, I'm using those to try and soften up the garrison in 3, because it's quite tough assaulting garrisons, and if you can knock them down a bit, that really helps. But again, I haven't placed them ideally. I should have put them a bit further to the left, so they could keep firing for longer, because the problem I'm going to have is as the columns of troops, mostly from Command E, march up to assault it, they're going to block out the artillery, so I need to be a bit more careful with that. So this is a sort of much lower level game than something like Blucher. The details are important, like the formations of the units. You can see all my infantry are in march column. You've got attack columns and line. and garrisons, of course. And things like exact positioning of artillery and things are much more important. You've got to be more careful. And how do you handle your troops? For example, Command E, I put them in 4 march columns alongside each other. At some point, they've got to switch to attack columns to make the assault. And that can be difficult if you're near the enemy. But I do want to race and get to 4 first at least. And then set up my attack. The problem is, they do get in each other's way a bit, as you'll see. So there's an overview, and there's turn 1. And you can see basically my central division is piled up towards the town. My left-hand division is threatening the bridge and that hill. A damage on the garrison, which is a bonus. On the right-hand side, I should explain the last slide really. I'm thinking with a unit of cavalry hiding behind that hill, I can threaten all those infantry columns and make it very difficult for them to approach the hill. We also allowed the option of 1 light unit each, and we both put 1 on the far flank to occupy that wood. So I reckon 1 infantry or 2 infantry plus the cavalry can easily contest that. And if he doesn't commit to it, then I can take it. So I'm actually planning on using some of that command to swing in to join the assault on the towns in the middle. So the artillery, of course, he opens up on me, and this was the gamble really, because those are march columns. It's double dice against those, and that could have got a lot worse. I got very lucky. 8 dice per and only 2 hitting, and that's on both occasions. A few more hits and they could have been in a bit of trouble, those columns. And the luck continued, because on my next turn you can see the 3 appearing on the big dice, which is the turn counter. The green markers show that both of them rallied, so effectively they've taken no effect from that artillery, which is a real bonus. Also, unfortunately, the garrison, his garrison also rallied in the town after I did another hit with the artillery. So once again, you see on the top left-hand corner, he's advancing rather cautiously towards this hill and setting up the line. I don't know if he's expecting an assault from me. I do tend to be quite aggressive. But my plan really, I'm thinking he's now deployed the artillery in the top left, might be just off picture. And I'm going to hide behind this hill and just wait. I'm contesting the hill, and if he doesn't come forward towards the end of the game, I'm going to make a dash with 1 of my march columns and grab the bridge. So I'm fancying myself to get the bridge at the moment. On the far right, as I said, I just put the cavalry there to be a nuisance and force his infantry to think a bit, and then the main assault's going to go through the centre. So, turn 5, so the 3rd move of my guys, and you can see the attack columns are formed in the centre, getting ready to assault the village. I'm not bothering with the first village because it's empty, and I'll just take that as and when at the end. The artillery's popped a couple of hits onto his infantry in the centre, and I'm not cowering behind the hill. We're using the terrain to our maximum advantage, because that heavy artillery's now got nothing to shoot at, which is good news. Oh, and up on the far right, we're contesting the wood, and the cavalry is going to park itself just halfway up the hill in a second to threaten his infantry and stay out of the danger from the artillery. Now you see the bizarre situation where the cavalry that was lurking on the hill here, our cavalry, has now advanced past the square, which can't attack it, and is threatening that march column coming up on the right flank. I immediately wondered, I've been wondering ever since, would the cavalry have been better off just sitting there, keeping him in square and threatening his advance, you know? Because once you've sort of shot the bolt, they're like a missile, the cavalry, aren't they? Once you've committed them forwards, they don't come back again very often. And on the far right, we're starting to contest the woods. So to my opponent's turn, starting on the left flank, he's holding back with all those units there, and that's quite a large force. Whereas the guys I have on the hill are also, I'm actually going to start committing those to the centre as well, with just a couple of units staying back with the cavalry, which is always a nuisance for him, to keep threatening this hill, and then concentrate. As you can see, 2 units have moved up to the side of the village to try and protect it, and we're starting to tangle on the far right. all those green cubes are successful rallies, which is the bonus for my guys coming up to the village, because as you can see, I've got one is basically run the gauntlet of the artillery to swing round and attack from the other side if it's brave enough. Unfortunately, the enemy also rallied, which is a shame, because that meant that early bombardment on the city has completely been cancelled out. So it's going to be tough. So the bizarre situation with my cavalry zooming up to threaten his march column continues, because the march column probably marches past the cavalry. They just crossed each other. And his square is encroaching on the cavalry, you notice, just to block them off from making any turns. Because where the cavalry going to go now? They can't turn. Oh, it's awkward. Well, they can just push up. Just keep going and come around the back, perhaps. In the woods, as you can see, we're starting to tangle there. He's got into firing line, which is better for him for shooting, which is what I should have done. I put myself at a slight disadvantage. And then we've got the, unfortunately, amateur units at the bottom of the hill, now about to face 2 battalions when he comes out of square, and the one coming in the march column. Yeah, and their orders are to hold on to that hill as long as possible, because they're a bit outclassed by the superior infantry coming towards them. So back towards the centre of the town, he sees a couple of units coming to defend the flank of the town, but this is where my force is. I've got 4 units coming straight to the middle. The other one's going to come around the right side of the villages, and I can feed in from the hill if I wish to. The opponent's infantry is starting to advance, but they're a little bit further back from the main action at the moment. So, the cotton wool there shows the shooting of mine. The artillery did nothing, which is a bit frustrating. The infantry failed to damage the infantry outside the town, but we did do wound on the garrison, which might be crucial. Yeah, something I missed earlier. The 2 units just to the left side of the town, my opponent's 2 units, are actually as cavalry, which is a very clever use of them, because it really is going to disrupt my assault. And it keeps the 2 cavalry together. It's a very aggressive play there. So my cavalry is actually charged down off the hill, accepted the challenge. I get the +2 dice, I think I'm slightly better quality, and it's going to be a roll-off. And the infantry are going to have to try and shoot the cavalry and stop them, which they've failed to do, unfortunately. So we're in an attack column at the moment. This is going to force us into square. So, yes, a nice bit of play by my opponent there. So, flipping back over to the right-hand side, and as you can see, the guys in the woods have managed to put a wound on the guys opposite them, which is good news. And the unit defending the hill has gone to attack column formation, ready to face the oncoming onslaught. And also, one thing, if they stay there, even if they get hit by the artillery, they can try and rally it off. Yes, we now really are depending on the guys in the woods holding out and actually trying to win that, because they've done 2 shooting damage, which is a huge bonus. And they're going to risk a charge to try and clear it out. While our poor little amateurs at the bottom of the hill here are just going to have to duke it out, because they're going to be outnumbered by superior troops soon. But look right at the top of the screen, where the cavalry is looped round and is now threatening to overrun that heavy artillery. So that really takes a bit of the pressure off the centre, because these poor guys will be getting pounded. They might have started the game as amateurs, but they're going to become veterans. Right, so there's the overall situation. As you can see, using the hill for cover on the far left, while the rest of the command filters into the centre. Cavalry taking on the cavalry. I'm just hoping I've got enough infantry to force out his cavalry, while the other command also swings round. So everything's swinging to the centre, with holding forces on the flank. So the cavalry on charging off the hill managed to just about squeak a win, and we take a casualty each, and we're still stuck with the other problem, the other cavalry, and you can see the infantry I have facing opposite them already in square. And the trick here, yeah, I almost forgot this, is to keep advancing the infantry in square by 1 inch to make sure they're the nearest unit to the enemy cavalry, because their charge priority is they will have to charge the square, which obviously they don't want to do, so the attack column can continue pushing on towards the town. Yeah, I have to say, I really enjoyed this scenario. Rather than concentrating on breaking your opponent's army, it's really grabbing the objectives and wondering which part of the battle is going to become significant. So the 2 there, you can't see the little 6 on top of it, so it's 8. Turn 8 to my opponent's now really starting to push onto this hill on the side. And also, he's limbered up his artillery on the far left. They haven't had a target, and they're going to take the bridge. I hadn't thought of that. That's a nice move. Because to take the bridge back from him or compete for it, we've got to run the gauntlet of the grape shot of the heavy artillery battery. So that objective has gone the wrong way. So really, really have to take that village in the centre. And if the guys on the flanks can just hold on, that'll be the way to do it, I think. Well, that's the plan anyway. Right, so the cavalry on the top right is turn 9. My cavalry's gone career right up to the top right-hand corner, and is now facing in to run down his artillery, which is a real result, because there's nothing near to protect that artillery. Now, Roger's looked up the command and control rules since, and we should have played a bit tighter, because my general is the one who's using his 10-inch or 10 base width command range to control the cavalry. He's kind of parked in the middle of enemy, effectively, so I didn't quite get that right, but that's how we played it. As long as your general's within 10, you can command them. So that cavalry is swinging around ready to charge the artillery, and they're battling away in the woods. Unfortunately, his garrison rallied yet again, which is very frustrating, because we're really hoping to get a few hits on there before the assault. Yep, so the units has now stayed in march column, taking the lower of the two towns. So I want the flexibility to take them back out of the town. It does mean they got hit by the artillery, but they've rallied that off. And with his artillery about to get chased away by the cavalry, they should be okay. And they can now help somewhere else in the battle, probably on the assault on this other village, where we've done another wound through shooting, which is good news. Back over to the far right flank, and of course with the cavalry galloping off in glory after that artillery, it's freed up his infantry to really make the assault here. Although the guys in the wood, I shouldn't call them that, my light infantry in the wood are doing really well and actually winning that melee, which changes things a lot, because they were losing it originally. Ah, look at that. I don't like to talk about dice too much, but I rolled all those dice, not a single one. Oh, sorry, 1-4. Got 1-4 out of all those dice, and lost the assault, because they had them weakened and could have won that. And if they'd won that, suddenly this flank becomes a different ball game. So my amateurs have formed line at the base of the hill, and they're ready to take what's coming to them. So there's clearly a bit of a crisis on the right flank now, with the elite units coming over the hill up against the amateurs in line. They're trying to stop them by firing. But don't forget, I do have, off the left edge of the picture, those units joining in the assault on the town. I really don't want to pull them away from that, but if I can take the town, I do have battalions that can come back across and help recapture this hill, which looks like it might be lost. And the horse artillery is floating around. In fact, the horse artillery isn't floating around. Here it is at the bottom of the screen. It's coming all the way over to the other flank. But as it gets there, realise there's no way we're going to shift that heavy artillery or take that bridge. That's gone. And there's going to be no position for them which is safe from his artillery either. So after being tempted to come and station down by this wood in the bottom corner, they're going to go back again. Yeah, that's where the crisis now is. Which is the great thing about horse artillery, the increased movement. And you can see the battalions building up for the assault on the centre. The square combined with shooting has driven back his other cavalry. So now we've got 3 units coming in contact. We've got to get some shooting damage to wear that garrison down. On to my opponent, turn 11. See lots of shooting, but no real red markers. It was amazing how we just kept missing and missing. Apart from the amateurs up on the far right, who managed to inflict a very, very useful wound on the elites coming over, or they're not really elites, but they're veterans anyway, that are coming over the hill. And there they are, bless them. Keep firing, lads. Keep putting the hits on. So the enemy battalions start to wheel around the side of this hill, but are they leaving it too late? It's already turn 11. And with the cavalry still lurking on there, you can see just sort of falling off the front of the hill. Can't quite get the back rank to balance, but that's where they are, just in charge range, forcing them into square and just slowing this attack while we try and take the town in the centre. Unfortunately, on the right flank, 2 dice are all the veterans need to inflict casualties back on the amateurs. So the assault on the town begins. As you can see on the left of the town, the square has been pushing up to drive back the enemy cavalry, and the centre unit is piling in, and the other units come all the way around the side of the town, no longer being hit by the enemy artillery, which has been dislodged by the cavalry charge all the way around the flank. So it's 2 units attacking onto 1, with lots of advantages for the defender. We jump again to the right flank. I say that's a great thing with this scenario, jumping back and forth between different objectives. And the unit in the wood, the battalion in the wood, has taken another hit and is now on 3, as are their opponents. If either takes another wound or they can't rally, they need to rally without taking another wound, they are destroyed. And it's getting critical, because if our unit is destroyed, the veterans on the hill can drive away these amateurs. The hill is taken, and we're going to have to come across and try and at least contest it or take it back again. So it's definitely a crisis on this side. In goes the first assault onto the town. Maybe I gave it away when I said first assault, because unfortunately they didn't make it. and will recoil, taking wounds on the way out, which is a real pain because I can't get anything on the garrison. So it's going to be just as difficult next time unless I can rally those off before they charge in. I'm thinking maybe I have to get a third unit in. The unit I've got sitting in the other village in column of march is free to come out. That was a great thing about not garrisoning them. And I think they're going to be needed as well in this assault. It's become absolutely critical. So there's the overview. And as you can see on the far right, I'm getting red dots. We're losing that flank and taking casualties. The centre, we also took more casualties. The only bonus, I didn't get to show it on the pictures. In the top, just below the wood, you'll see there the cavalry with a hit on them as they've run through and taken out that artillery. So at least a unit destroyed. And what it's also done, because the cavalry is now behind my enemy, he had to turn something to face them. Which means that the cavalry, which are menacing my left of centre, just the side of my assault on the town, are turning to take my cavalry. And they can chase them as far as they like. As far as I'm concerned, we've got to get out of there. But what it does do is free up more battalions to join the assault on the town, hopefully. So those cavalry are being priceless. So you can see the first cavalry engagement. And the way it works in LaSalle, I think by this stage you probably know that you wouldn't be watching the video. The charge goes in, so you can see at the top of the screen. The enemy cavalry has charged our cavalry. On our turn, we then get to react. And the react is going to be run. Get out of there. We've taken 2 hits already. One from artillery fire and one from the melee with the artillery. And we're lining up to get the assault started again on the town in the centre. And meanwhile, the cavalry is a bit of a standoff there. And we're hoping we can just hang on to that hill to the end of the game. Turn 13. And the attack columns actually rallied and have gone charging in again to have another go at the town. Let's see if we can do it this time. Just to confirm this, a close-up of the electronic scoreboard. No expense spared on this channel. 6 plus 6 plus 10, 14, in case you hadn't worked it out. So to my opponent, and there's a reaction to the assault. And we're in! As you can see, so the way it works is that one of the units attacking has to go in column of march to march through the town. So they are vulnerable to counterattack because they're not garrisoned. But there's only the cavalry and they're facing the wrong way. And the enemy infantry are too far away to intervene. So at the moment, we're sitting on 2 objectives taken. The bridge is lost. And we're contesting the 2 hills. Turn 14, not long to go. Turn 16 could be the end. So, an overview at the end of turn 14. We'll work from left to right. So in the bottom left, you can see my unit taking some damage from the artillery. But they're not going to move. They're not near enemy, so they should be able to rally that off without any trouble. The green flag you see just the other side of the hill is a square trundling up 1 base width a turn and pushing my cavalry back, which is just giving the ground. The problem's going to be I've got infantry behind them, so I need to rejiggle that to give some room for the cavalry to come out. But with nightfall approaching, there's no way I'm going to lose that hill. To be claimed, the enemy has to be not within 4 of it. They've got the artillery, 2 infantry, the cavalry, so that's fine. Also, the artillery has moved into a really good spot and will be wheeling to fire into the flank of the enemy infantry battalion that is coming to try and assault the square next to the village. I mean, 1 battalion is not going to take those villages anyway. That's too little too late, really. Because remember, to hold a village, it doesn't matter if an enemy is nearby. Over on the far right, the horse artillery has galloped all the way back, you see, just to the right of the village, and is now in a great spot to start putting canister into the flank of the infantry battalion he has coming in to attack the flank of the valiant amateurs who have stood in line and have rallied again and are actually driving off the veterans. They got them up to 3. So if they lost 1 more casualty, those veterans would have been broken. And that's a real lifesaver there. I mean, I think we could always contest that hill somehow, but the moral victory of driving them back means we're actually winning in the wood as well, and suddenly have a chance of taking this hill. And I'm suddenly realised that with the towns taken, the units in the towns are in march column. The garrison was destroyed when I took the town, so in march column it comes straight out, deploying to attack column, and suddenly I've got like 5 battalions and the horse artillery all wading in for that hill. Right at the top right you see the cavalry being chased down by his cavalry. I'm just going to keep retreating to the end of the table. That's, you know, hopefully they don't die. Apart from that, they've done their job. They took out their artillery and they've distracted all his cavalry. So they've been absolutely the unit of the game, really. So here is the situation at the end of our turn. That's the end of turn 15. So you see the bottom left-hand corner's been nicely reorganised, with the infantry just sitting in attack column, taking the artillery fire. They can stand that for a while. And the cavalry slowly giving ground behind the hill as these attack columns are advancing on the hill. And given enough time, I think they would take it. But time is coming towards the end. 16 could be the last turn. And the artillery in the centre is in a lovely spot now, pouring some canister into the flank of that poor battalion which is going across to try and liberate those towns somehow. Moving further across to the right, you can see the horse artillery on the right doing the same thing. And now I've realised that we don't need to stay garrisoning in that town. I've got units behind that can move in and do that job. So battalions are pouring out from the assault and pouring out from the right-hand town to join in the assault on the right-hand hill. The battle continues in the wood on the far right, and either side taking a hit now is going to have lost that wood. If these amateurs hadn't held at the bottom of the hill, or the town in the centre had held out for a couple more turns, this will be looking very bad right now with that hill lost. It turns so quickly. So here's a close of the situation now in the wood, battling away. Both wait to see who blinks first or who runs first. And the line is fully rallied, waiting for it, and we'll wait for that assault to come. And then, yeah, sure enough, the light infantry in the woods on the right finally cracked. Oh, they were winning that. They were 2 up. They'd done 2 wounds without taking any. Assaulted with extra dice and everything, then lost and got shot. And suddenly it was an even game, and they lost on, you know, oh well. It was a 1v1. But the heroes of being these amateurs who held the thin red line there. I think they're actually Hanoverian, but there we go. And as you can see, this column with the red marker on the left is going to try and assault those, but don't forget the horse artillery is waiting for them. So as we complete turn 16 and possibly the end of the battle, the situation's as follows. We're holding 2 towns, which is two objectives. Opponent has the bridge off the left-hand side of the picture, so it's 2-1 as it were, and the hills are pretty firmly contested now. Yeah, I think well, they're just contested, aren't they? I'm not sure either side's got enough strength to win the hills. Although I'm starting to feel like a pile in on the right-hand side might help. Although there again, his cavalry might turn around and come back after chasing mine off. So it's a kind of a standoff on both sides. But yes, there was an extra turn. We rolled 1 dice each, and if we both rolled a 1, the game ended. We didn't. So we look at the situation. And this unit coming in to assault the amateurs, the horse artillery opened up with a canister and just walloped them. And that was them gone, I'm afraid. Excuse me. I'm not sure if the amateurs actually shot or not, but anyway, it's enough to destroy those. And there's no chance of taking this hill now, even with the wood cleared. So we looked at the overall situation, and my opponent decided it was time to withdraw his forces, and we call that result. So one exciting and interesting game. I hope you really enjoyed it. It was great to play in. It really does get you thinking when you're working out how much of force you deploy to different areas. You know, I think the towns were quite crucial, and they did well to jump on those first. Having the flexibility with the cavalry was enormous, because that really held the flanks for me. And we did, well, I abused really the command and control rule with my general able to sort of be in the town and reach all the way up to the cavalry on one side and the horse artillery on this side. And reading the rules again, that might not have been allowed. So I've had to be a bit done it differently. Maybe the general had to go with the cavalry. As it turned out, moving my horse artillery across to the left was a waste of time anyway. They never actually did anything. As soon as they got there, they went back. So it might have saved me from a mistake. And I could have kept the horse artillery with its brigade and not needed the general at all. But anyway, there we go. As I said, I'll put a link to the scenario on the forum. I've looked at it since I recorded the first part of this video, because that's when I got the link sent through. And it's originally designed for French against British. And so Roger's done a lot of work converting this. We know it works well with these type of armies. So there you go. If you look on the forum, you'll see this as No Room at the Inn, 1809. And there it is. So you can play it yourself. And I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave your comments. And until the next time, keep rolling.
就像那年匆促刻下永远一起那样美丽的谣言。如果过去还值得眷恋，愿它快冰释前嫌。谁的心就这样彼此无挂也无牵，我们要互相亏欠。要不